serious allegations in a report by Sports Illustrated. Within the Mavericks organization, a detailed report describes a corrosive and harassment-filled workplace. A, quote, real-life animal house. Interviews with more than a dozen current and former employers. Talked about specifically a man at the top, former president and CEO Damon Amendolara, who was accused of multiple incidents of inappropriate behavior towards female employees during his 18 years with the team. Some gross language, some bad behavior, and known around the company as the guy you don't want to be stuck in an elevator with. Mark Cuban responded. He said, quote, I want to deal with this issue. I mean, this is obviously, there's a problem in our organization and we've got to fix it. That's it. We're going to take every step. It's not something we tolerate. I don't want it. It's not something that's acceptable. I'm embarrassed to be honest with you that it happened under my ownership. It needs to be fixed. Period. End of story. The NBA released a statement saying such behavior is completely unacceptable. The NBA is going to, quote, closely monitor the Mavericks investigation as the team insists it will look into it. You also have their digital reporter within the Mavs organization doing stuff with the team website on camera, being involved in multiple abusive relationships towards women. With multiple women. He insists he underwent counseling after both situations and that he grew from it, but was still employed by the team. Mark Cuban said, quote, I deferred to the CEO and to human resources when asked whether he had any knowledge of misconduct. He said, I was involved in basketball operations. Other than that, getting financials and reports, I was not involved in the day-to-day. That's why I just deferred. I let people do their jobs, and if there was anything like this at all I was supposed to be made aware of, obviously I was not. The question becomes, how much responsibility does Mark Cuban have here? Because Mark Cuban was not one of the men accused of this, but he is the owner of this. Look, what happens with college basketball coaches, college football coaches, those like Rick Pitino that say, Andre McGee was a rogue assistant and I didn't know that he was using prostitutes to recruit players. I got a real tough time believing that Rick Pitino, who is a micromanager in every way, measuring guys' body fat percentage every year, has no idea that on campus there might be some funny business to get some of these guys committed. I got a hard time believing that. I had no idea we had prostitutes on campus.
She's a bad girl, David.
I had no idea. Yeah, I got a tough time believing that from Rick Pitino. For Mark Cuban, it's a little bit more believable that he wouldn't have insight into the day-to-day accusations, allegations, or behavior of this guy simply because Mark Cuban has about 1 billion other companies. If you watch Shark Tank, you realize this dude has invested money and owns companies in like 30% of the marketplace. I mean, the guy owns everything. So to know every piece of behavior with every guy in every organization, I could understand saying maybe you wouldn't know. Rick Pitino, I got a tough time believing it. Mark Cuban, maybe a little bit more. But here's what doesn't smell right, is that one of your CEOs, the president of your organization, and by far the most visible company that Mark Cuban owns, if this guy's got a reputation behind the scenes as you don't want to be trapped in an elevator with him, Cuban's got to know that this guy's kind of seen as a scuzzball. He's got to kind of know that this guy isn't exactly Mr. Rogers behind the scenes. I mean, how do you have somebody that high up in your organization, known to everybody within the building as a scuzzball, and you don't know? Now, maybe you don't know the extent of things, but maybe that's where you don't want to know. And that's a problem. It's a huge problem because for too long, people in power, we just didn't really care enough. And finally, with this new movement, people care, which is good because we should care about how other people are treated, especially in the workplace and in relationships. We should care that people are being treated properly. We should care how people are treated. I know that there is a sinking meanness in the world and this country over the last couple of years, but you know what? It would be better if we did care that people were treated well. So I just think for a long time it was like, boys will be boys. And if there's somebody in power, you can't really quite question it, which is how Harvey Weinstein becomes Harvey Weinstein. Boys will be boys. He owns everything. What are you going to do? Challenge him? Nobody will believe you. People need to start taking this stuff seriously if they get some type of wind of it. And Mark Cuban probably had some type of wind of it because this guy is essentially a number two in your organization, your most visible organization, and one of your most powerful properties you own, if not the most powerful property. You kind of should know. And people need to be on high alert for scummy dudes and scummy behavior like this. And if you don't know, as we say about college coaches, then you should know. And that's what you can say about Mark Cuban. Maybe you didn't know, but you should know. That's the type of thing you should be aware of.